The Neuroscience of Self-Discipline. Introduction. One of the reasons why it is generally so hard to start new habits or stick with difficult ones, like holding to targets, is that the human brain is designed to reduce as much as possible the effort and resources put into action. It evolved to reach desired goals with minimal energy expenditure. As a consequence, complex goals that require sustained effort are hard and often end up in failure. Although self-discipline degenerates as a force of will, unfortunately, the forces that oppose it are just too strong and overwhelming. In other words, self-discipline is hard to achieve because we are inherently lazy, unfit, and inefficient. Yet, one can achieve self-discipline, especially with the help of those goals that affect reward processing in the brain. Such achievements are impressive precisely because self-discipline is extremely hard to achieve. Everyone knows what they should be doing more of, and everybody fails at this from time to time. People fail to live up to their own standards on matters as central as work, learning, and morality. In the context of entrepreneurship, where failure rate is astronomically high, self-discipline is especially hard to achieve. Although, like most things, self-discipline appears to be partly heritable. This so-called trait ability is only subject to superficial modulation. There is no cable TV network for people with this particular problem, and drugs do not seem to help. Why is this? And more importantly, how is it that some people actually achieve difficult goals they set for themselves? Most entrepreneurs attribute their success to determination, resilience, and passion. In other words, self-discipline. It is often self-discipline that differentiates successful entrepreneurs from those who are not. Self-discipline refers both to an ability to direct behavior, that is, action selection and deployment, in a goal-oriented fashion, and to an ability to delay immediate satisfaction in favor of long-term success. For example, it reflects an ability to go to the gym when tired and not watch TV, to turn down immediate pleasure's overwhelmingly negative long-term consequences, and to work on a venture when feeling demoralized. Amongst entrepreneurs, countless individuals attribute their success to grit and finishing what they start rather than their cerebral firepower. The entrepreneurial lifestyle has been famously celebrated for its freedom, autonomy, and for enabling those who seek non-traditional paths to support the career choices that reflect their own preferences. Yet many entrepreneurs fail to achieve the same level of success that traditional careers offer, and, as such, end up spending more time working longer hours than they expected. However, some are capable of working fewer hours, earning more, and accomplishing more of their personal goals. Chapter 1. Understanding Self-Discipline. Willpower is internally determined, selfish, and follows special principles. Self-discipline and lack of self-discipline are said to depend on the inner decisional capacity of individuals in the field of neural limbic systems and intelligence, according to the electromagnetic theory of mind. At the heart of willpower is Will HQ. Will HQ has an important adaptive function for the survival of the individual. According to EMATC, at the center of Will HQ, which is a neurobiological level, is self-discipline. Resistance from self-induced motivation is seen as primitive and basic, and taking priority in how and where he will adapt to the environment with respect to the habitat. Impulse is responsible for the production of chemical mood agents such as cephalins, endorphins, adrenaline, and noradrenaline during a situation. The receptor is the brain circuits in which the 5-HT1 receptor ligands belong. In the context of EMATC, habit logic is a higher level than the Will HQ level, including higher learning neural circuits and flow principles, application principle, return principle, and resum life principle, in accordance with the EMATC theory of learning. In emergencies, under normal conditions, it serves as a filtering function in which Will HQ is activated in case of any possibility of emergency events with the decision-making neural circuits of the cerebrum. To develop self-discipline, it is necessary to understand what self-discipline actually is. It is helpful to understand self-discipline as the opposite of impulsivity, lack of willpower, and free will. According to the electromagnetic theory of consciousness, EMATC, consciousness occurs in three dimensions, and consciousness includes all mental, emotional, and motivational functions of the brain. Impulse or impulse control occurs in the first dimension, learning, complex thinking, logic, attention, creativity, and analytical thinking in the second dimension, and acceleration of systems connected with the self and self-discipline in the third dimension. According to EMATC, counseling and self-discipline training were also considered important for self-discipline. In fact, our modern understanding of self-discipline as the most important contributor to human success has prompted us to understand how to train this important human trait. At the same time, we have learned a great deal about the underpinnings of this ability and are beginning to understand how these functions can be enhanced. It has become clear that successful self-discipline is a reflection of successful self-control and that the ability to control the self has its roots in simple mechanisms of associative learning. For example, when a rat is asked to press a bar to get a food pellet, it is in control of its act of eating the pellet. If, all of a sudden, two food pellets are given, the rat is no longer in control of this act and will change its behavior and begin to press the bar twice. It is hard to overstate the importance of self-discipline in our lives. This capacity to control our impulses and delay gratification has been shown to be a better predictor of future success than either IQ or socioeconomic status. For a long time, self-discipline was seen as the result of a confluence of good parenting, wealth, good genes, and socioeconomic factors. This seemed to leave the possibility for self-discipline to be left to chance and for other virtues to be at its mercy. This is why it has been incredibly interesting to neuroscientists that self-discipline is also highly malleable and that we would have been lucky if, down the road, a large portion of our cognitive capacities could still be shaped. In economics, the lifestyle decision made by present biased agents, agents with little intrinsic value for the future, can translate into poorer health and higher criminal activities, with collateral, negative impacts for society. Moreover, a lack of patience was also negatively correlated with Pacific Islander students' academic outcomes. Furthermore, economist Carodo and Abadi studied the effect of self-discipline in stock rates. These studies are all careful to state that their conclusions are correlative in nature, ruling out the importance of the omission of exogenous variables. Does this relationship make a difference in people's lives? Mischel suggests that the capacity for self-discipline is critical for a successful life because so many of the things that are beneficial to us, such as eating healthily and exercising or saving money for important future purchases, require self-control. Following this idea, a handful of studies in psychology have shown that individuals with lower self-control are more likely to engage in a range of unwanted behaviors such as unhealthy eating, addictions, gambling, excessive alcohol consumption, and, in general, a lack of impulse control, poor impulse inhibition, and greater resistance to control urges. Self-control might act by inducing good habits and instigating regular upkeep of commitment to the goal. Similarly, wanting to return to and continue the desired state could trigger positive feelings, training the process if you like. Self-control helps to differentiate happiness and short happiness. Understanding the difference helps to appreciate the necessity of self-restraint and respect for self-imposed goals when we base long happiness-oriented decisions. In a study published by Psychological Science in 2003, cat owners were presented with multiple possible technologies to prevent their cats from killing wild birds. When asked to rate how likely they were to purchase and use the technologies, higher self-control individuals, based on self-report, preferred using the most preventative ones, while the rest wanted to use the least severe ones and thought the other ones were too extreme. Based on interventions used by larger cat sanctuaries with the same problem, it was shown that the stricter ones were the most effective in reducing cat killing. Cats should only be let out when a human guardian could spend time observing the cat and if the cat had a bell attached to its collar. According to the authors, the study shows that people are more likely to be happy if they make mistakes in rule following rather than if they break an unmodified rule of the highest severity level. In popular culture and common beliefs, self discipline is often deemed as a rigid, punishing way to live. However, recent studies have shown that putting rules to live by might actually help us feel good. Basically, having good rules can help focus on your goal, and that makes people happier. Individual differences in self discipline may result in part from individual variations in the concentration of prefrontal cortex tissue or neural connections between the prefrontal cortex and other parts of the brain. This variation could reflect, in part, genetic differences. The right prefrontal cortex seems to be especially critical to self discipline. It has been called the mind's watchman, guardian, or warden. Although the left hemisphere is usually dominant in speech and language, its partner is more capable of adapting to new information coupled with courage to replan actions. The right hemisphere tends to give priority to remote over immediate rewards and to social over monetary rewards, to focus on problems instead of rewards, and to foster more empathic behavior. Recent research has found that the brain's self-regulatory mechanisms responsible for self-discipline are more active in some people than others. Many researchers have argued that self-discipline is an inherited trait dependent upon characteristics of the central nervous system. However, humans have no unique self-discipline instinct brain area. The key neural contributors to self-discipline are the prefrontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex executive system, and the right hemisphere. The prefrontal cortex has been called the brain's chief executive. It helps give people the ability to foresee what they want, to reflect on their actions, and to block actions they know to be undesirable in the long run. It integrates the information needed to formulate and carry out plans. For these reasons, this area is critical for successful self-discipline. The executive system includes the prefrontal cortex and its tracks to other brain regions. What proponents of the central nervous system view of self-discipline call heritability of self-discipline is most accurately labeled heritability of brain structure and function critical for self-discipline. Additionally, it should be noted that self-discipline plays a crucial role in various aspects of life, including academic achievements, career success, and overall well-being. Individuals with higher levels of self-discipline tend to have better academic outcomes as they are able to resist distractions and engage in focused study and learning. Furthermore, self-disciplined individuals are more likely to set and achieve long-term goals, leading to greater career success and personal fulfillment. They are better equipped to manage their time effectively, prioritize tasks, and persevere in the face of challenges. In terms of well-being, self-discipline is closely linked to mental and physical health. Practicing self-discipline in areas such as diet and exercise promotes healthy habits, leading to improved physical fitness and reduced risk of chronic diseases. Additionally, self-discipline plays a role in managing stress, as individuals with greater self-control are better able to regulate their emotions and cope with challenging situations. There are various strategies and techniques that can be employed to enhance self-discipline. One effective approach is setting clear and specific goals, as this provides individuals with a sense of direction and purpose. Breaking down goals into smaller, manageable tasks can also make them more attainable and less overwhelming. Additionally, creating a structured routine and establishing positive habits can help reinforce self-discipline. This includes incorporating regular exercise, practicing mindfulness or meditation, and maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. It is important to recognize that building self-discipline is a gradual process and may require effort and commitment. It is normal to experience setbacks and moments of temptation, but practicing self-awareness and self-reflection can help identify triggers and develop strategies to overcome them. Seeking support from others, such as friends, family, or a professional coach, can also provide accountability and guidance in the journey towards greater self-discipline. In conclusion, self-discipline is a fundamental attribute that plays a crucial role in various aspects of life. It allows individuals to resist immediate gratification, stay focused on long-term goals, and make choices that align with their values. Developing and cultivating self-discipline can lead to enhanced academic performance, career success, and overall well-being. Through self-awareness, goal setting, and consistent practice, individuals can strengthen their self-discipline and unlock their full potential. Chapter 2: The Brain and Self-Discipline. Most animal brains have their motor and sensory systems directly interconnected so that there is no temporal delay introduced by neural computations where the time lag of the impulses cannot compete with the time taken for an action potential to move down a neuron. Action potentials travel the same distance from the peripheral receptors to the motor neurons that generate the muscular movements in the spinal cord of a frog in less than 10 milliseconds. But the human brain evolved to have these systems separated by the elongated upper walls of the midbrain and does not grow up entirely until after it has been born, suggesting that temporal delays imposed by the central nervous system are important. The separation of the sensory and motor systems provided time for the addition of new neural structures, which returns benefits to the human experience. By the time naughty kittens are capable of pulling a chair to a counter or the great Robert Boyle is able to fasten strings about the legs of the fly chairs which he built, we expect the men and women to be capable of the same behaviors, which suggests that there is a long training process that underlies effortful behaviors. Once these capabilities are developed, self-restraint and inhibition, sometimes called a lack of self-discipline, develop next. We expect our kittens and little children to explore, seek immediate gratification, have poor concentration, pay attention mostly to loud and noticeable stimuli, and to become excitable. But by the time of adolescence, we expect them not only to gain more control over their behavior, but also to develop the capacity for self-discipline. This long delay in the emergence of consistent effortful behavior has deep roots in the temporal dynamics of most bodily systems and the necessary maturation of the brain. Prefrontal cortex, PFC hereafter, is the seat of the pleasure aspect of our cognitive processes, bonuses that encourage us to keep pursuing them. Gray matter in the area is correlated with self-control, measured with a performance-based test known as the delay of gratification measure. Thicker an individual's PFC, better their self-control gets. Structural and functional upstream and downstream maps exist, but gray matter in the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex, DLPFC hereafter, tends to be of the supernodes in these networks. Thickness or gray matter in the region is correlated with that in many other regions. Individuals with thicker DLPFC receive more favorable returns ex salaries. Its neuron firings are closely watched by the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC hereafter, and the orbital frontal cortex, OFC hereafter. Electroencephalographic, EEG, studies have also shown that the region is active during self-control tasks. They can be weak, though, and by simple virtue of the fact that DLPFC is a network control hub with high out degree. Everyone wants to have a strong relationship with it. Thirdly, thicker, DLPFC has been correlated with stable levels of self-control over time, irrespective of thickening rates, which contributes to the maintenance of its structural importance over longer durations than every other brain region. Everyone's favorite neurologist, Dr. Santiago Ramon y Cajal, the father of neuroplasticity, discovered that the nervous systems can regenerate and form newer connections after injury. Neuropsychology has shown this to be the case with both gray matter, cell bodies and dendrites, and white matter, myelin and glial cells, even in adult brains. Thus, old dogs can learn new tricks, but there are some methodological issues, such as duration. How long does it take before the rejuvenating effects start to kick in? Critical periods. Is there a window of time during which rejuvenation must occur? And determining the difference between rejuvenation and substitution, regenerating cells that replace older dead ones. Cortical plasticity provides some very basic implications for motivation. To quote Dr. Eric Kandel, who is also well known for being the pater familias and one of the pioneers of the subject. Altered sensory experience can cause large-scale morphological changes to brains. I speculate that a similar process underlies self-discipline. Telling yourself, I will not eat more pizza, is simply another way of altering your experiences. Research has, to a certain extent, provided support for this speculation. Self-discipline training has been shown to thicken the prefrontal cortex. The psychological model of self-control suggests cognitive control/modulation processes might exert their effects by focusing on enhancing the reward value of the goal target, goal-directed mechanisms, or by enhancing the feasibility or ease of execution of the goal target, prepotent response inhibition. An emphasis on the importance of these mechanisms in tasks targeting self-control has a distinguished tradition in the psychological literature as key processes subserving the pursuit of goals. A subsequent neuroimaging study found activation in both dorsal and ventral parts of the striatum in healthy subjects while exerting self-control during food cravings, supporting the idea that cognitive control is, more precisely, a function of mesolimbic networks and not exclusively the result of lateral prefrontal activity. Dorsal regions of the striatum, or caudate nucleus, underpin cognitive control, particularly effortful antisaccadic behavior, concept acquisition, rule learning, and abstract categorization. Recent progress in the cognitive and behavioral neurosciences gives some clues to how willpower, or self-control, might be implemented in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, primarily the lateral and inferior prefrontal cortices, is understood to be responsible for implementing control. Converging evidence from human lesion studies and neuroimaging research suggests functionally distinct subregions of the lateral prefrontal cortex, LPFC, that underpin different aspects of self-control, including working memory and goal selection, monitoring, and updating. Monitoring and updating are often labeled cognitive control and are a key executive function important to accomplishing tasks including long-term planning, decision-making, reasoning, and creativity, and has been linked to a family of upstream cortical structures known as the control system. When we habitually anticipate a future pleasure or perform an action we have been motivated to perform, dopamine will be released in our brains as well. Both this process and the beginning of the activated trigger release it. Making future benefits predictable, therefore, increases motivation greatly and makes those who have psychological advantages prefer long-term benefits as if they were immediate experiences, if only those that have waited a reliable period between the decision and pleasure. Consequently, prolonging the gap between intentions and rewards will make impatient individuals become more patient because rewards are predictable, making waiting easier. The third underlying factor of self-discipline, motivation, is closely linked with dopamine. As we experience pleasure, our brains release dopamine, and in anticipation of experiencing future pleasure or liking something, our dopamine system activates. When we perform actions when motivated, activities we like, we also release dopamine. So if we need to perform an action consistently, we need to experience at least some pleasure during or after performing it. Once this pleasure is experienced, then we have something to anticipate, thereby freeing ourselves from a dopamine reward. And indeed, activity appears before even somewhere else. In independent action planning, always the action of most anticipated pleasure is chosen. Potential reward in the dopamine system always motivates behavior. So, for instance, saving ourselves from an electric shock is motivated by the expected relief, not fear. Conversely, a large quantity of dopamine delays delayed payoff. Shocking mice with larger future rewards will make their reward preference increase earlier. Chapter 3. Developing self-discipline. In the realm of weight control, scientists explore how interactions between environmental cues and attention to bodily cues, like how hungry someone feels, in a group of susceptible individuals, such as dieters who were in an exposed position. In some, a key finding is that supposed failure of self-control doesn't always come from internal cognitive deficiencies, but indeed more often results from inattention to bodily cues associated with one's consumption. In such cases, it might make sense for many of us contribute to greater self-discipline by paying more attention to our body and less to the delicious but unhealthy items nearby. That repeated exposure to cues related to impulsive objects might also decrease one's ability to exert self-control. In terms of developing greater self-discipline, much of the most important research has been done by clinical scientists examining addiction, the prototypical instance of loss of control. The British psychologist Alan Marlatt, a pioneer in both the theory of self-regulation and applications to addiction, has conducted studies teaching relapse prevention strategies to reduce the likelihood of recidivism among recovering alcoholics. The basic principle behind relapse prevention is one of learning how to identify and avoid high-risk situations. Such situations vary according to the individual, but for many who suffer from addiction, negative affect and the anticipation of celebrating a success by indulging in their bad habits often serve as triggering cues. To temptations are ever present, one of the most effective things that individuals can do to bolster their self-discipline is to learn to avoid these triggering situations, which raise craving levels sufficiently to subvert self-control. Moreover, individuals should also focus on building new habits that promote health and positive well-being, replacing old, unhealthy patterns with new patterns that support self-discipline. Set specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely assessment criteria for each goal. That is, make each goal specific so it is more likely to be achieved. Make each goal measurable so you know when you have attained it. Set each goal to be attainable to increase your self-efficacy. Set each goal to be realistic so you won't be discouraged from continuing, and make them time-limited to create a sense of urgency. You should also set aside time explicitly for each goal so it does not get lost in the shuffle. Furthermore, try creating implementation intentions with if-then statements. Establishing specific weekly performance goals is better than leaving them at abstract levels. Be sure to make a commitment to your weekly goals and be public about your goals. This heightens your personal investment and also makes peers more sympathetic to you if you need reminders for your goals. By following these guidelines, individuals can effectively develop self-discipline and work towards achieving their goals. The first homework assignment on the path towards exercising self-discipline requires you to establish your goals and prioritize them. Your goals must be set in realms that serve to satisfy the three core needs: physical well-being, psychological well-being, and social connection. Remember, balance is key. Your goals must target satisfying at least one of the three domains. For example, you can set a goal to engage in regular exercise to improve your physical health, or set a goal to meditate daily to enhance your psychological well-being. The key is to sympathetically regulate your weekly schedules to accommodate activities in realms that improve your well-being and health in equal amounts. Be explicit about your tasks. What are the specific steps you need to take, and when will they be accomplished? Think about how your overall well-being is enhanced by meeting each goal. Finally, think of habits as synonyms. You have to work hard to generate the moment. You can't just put in halfway. It has to be 100%, and only then there is a huge spillover effect. Another way I think of habits, while it's not easy, it can be totally automated later on. Think of the activities you do on a daily basis. You forget most of them, right? They content think systems, not goals, as life advice after maybe one time. The more automatic you can be made, the better. Also, another point. There is a huge trend in the fitness and productivity world about people trying to hack themselves or optimize with biohacks, which is awesome, but what we're exploring today is the long game, not the short game. So keep that in mind. Creating successful habits requires dedication and commitment, and the implementation of various strategies. So here's my general framework for creating habits. First, choose a specific habit you want to implement. Try to pick only one for now. Then commit to it, publicly or privately. Make a clear declaration of your intention to develop this habit and hold yourself accountable. Then train for it. Force the activity to be executed consistently. Use a calendar. I use an app called Productive. Others are like Don't Break the Chain in conjunction with implementation intention, if then scenarios. You have to pair habits with an already existing one or a specific time or place. For example, if you want to develop a habit of reading before bed, you can pair it with the habit of brushing your teeth. Practice delayed gratification. This is the gold standard for creating a habit. Resist the urge for immediate reward and focus on the long-term benefits of your desired habit. If then scenarios are the best way to create a plan of action, but you can also leverage your social community and environment to support your habit development. Surround yourself with individuals who have similar goals and who can provide encouragement and accountability. Additionally, create an environment that is conducive to your habit. For example, if you want to eat healthier, stock your pantry with nutritious food options and remove unhealthy temptations. Then get an actor training experience. The more real-world scenario enactment you do, the better. Visualize yourself engaging in the habit and practice it in different situations. This will help solidify the habit and make it more automatic. Lastly, reduce the friction. Startup costs are barriers, but my favorite ways are to either design directly around the activity space or time in the context where it's to be performed, or the kick habit interoperability effect by deciding how you start is how you go. Make the habit as easy and convenient as possible to reduce any potential obstacles or barriers. The impulse control tasks used in such studies take the following form. A particular target or stimulus is presented to the individual in question. Here he is also informed that if he delays eating the stimulus for a period, such as 3 minutes, then other more desirable characteristics attached to the reward would be provided. In a paradigm from the famous marshmallow study in the renowned work led by Mischel, children were given one marshmallow and told that if they waited 15 minutes before eating the treat, they would be given a second marshmallow. The children withstood the temptation only 1/3 of the time. Similar observations have been reported in the case of monkeys, as well, who also exhibited difficulty in display of self-restraint on such like tasks. Oops, I ate it again have also been reported in recent studies done in humans as well on impulse control tasks, but of a somewhat more modern and subtle form. These findings highlight the challenge of self-control and the natural tendency to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits. According to Mischel, human beings have evolved to pursue immediate rewards such as food, sex, and relaxation, while at the same time needing to attend to important tasks such as learning, working, and maintaining diplomatic relations. In other words, the brain faces a fundamental dilemma, namely, when do we choose to select the allure of immediate rewards or their equivalents in the present rather than focusing on current goals in the hope of greater rewards in the future. The strategy which guides this decision process could be referred to as self-control or self-discipline, or, as Mischel refers to it, the ability to delay gratification. Neuroscience is now starting to provide answers to these questions. Researchers are exploring the neural mechanisms underlying self-control and temporal discounting, shedding light on why we often discount the value of future rewards. By understanding the neurobiological basis of self-discipline, we can develop strategies and interventions to enhance our ability to make long-term decisions and resist immediate temptations. Consequently, when is it strategically better to pay the price of one thing now in order to gain a greater reward in the future, versus choosing to indulge in the immediate rewards of the here and now? This is a question that individuals must grapple with on a daily basis. It requires careful consideration of personal goals, values, and priorities. By being mindful of the long-term consequences of our actions and the potential benefits that await us in the future, we can make more informed decisions. Developing self-control is a lifelong journey, but with practice and perseverance, we can strengthen our ability to delay gratification and make choices that align with our long-term goals. In conclusion, Self-discipline is a vital trait that contributes to personal success and well-being. It allows us to overcome immediate temptations and make choices that support our long-term goals. Through understanding the underlying mechanisms of self control, implementing effective strategies and interventions, and developing positive habits, we can enhance our self discipline and achieve greater levels of personal fulfillment. So let us embark on this journey of self discovery and self improvement and cultivate the power of self discipline within ourselves. Chapter 4: Overcoming Obstacles to Self Discipline. Even though it's complicated, you can train your brain to become better at self-discipline, and the structure of this paper, summarized below, is designed to help you do this. A fundamental obstacle to your self-discipline is that your brain does not understand your mind's desires. Those brain networks connected to your mind cannot ignore the hard reality of lengthy, grueling roads. Thus, if you are to convince your brain to pursue that goal, you will need to focus much of what you are about to learn on making the strategy for your goals feel less demanding. To be clear, frequent exercises and commitment are always hard. However, making your strategic levels demand less sufficient enough will allow you to incorporate those exercises into your routine, and frequent practice with commitment, and you will holders for them. Yourself will not be involved in execution too much, so you can imagine yourself as relaxed, significantly reducing the demand of the strategy and latching on self-discipline. Congratulations, you are reading the last section. It is common for people to accumulate information that could lead them to a better life, but end up making the same mistakes. This paper is not ashamed of itself for ending like that, but it does not want you to end like that. Changing your life for the better is difficult, and it's for a good reason. A good life is so much better than a bad one. This insight should make you believe that enduring the change is worth it, but it also tells you why change is so difficult, especially when your brain fights you with all its urges and lacks the structures for using all that knowledge. Among the most fascinating aspects of time management is the procrastination cycle. The allure of procrastination feeds on itself. Put off an activity today, and it will be even more tempting to put it off tomorrow, which generates even greater pressure to put it off the day after that. The cycle perpetuates itself endlessly, but there are a number of ways to interrupt it. By understanding the mechanisms behind it, you can come to appreciate these various means of interrupting. With better knowledge of the things that dull or sharpen your powers of self-discipline, practically anything and everything, a new arsenal of helpful strategies will be at your disposal. For example, acknowledging that a new and all-consuming love interest has the ability to suppress yours should be findings from other literature. These chapters elaborate on where to look for such free protocols. Or to tune out the part of your brain that says, go for it. There's plenty of time. Acknowledge the mounting evidence from experimental psychology for the idea that time decisions reflect the process of evaluating using a part of your brain separate from the prefrontal cortex. While these interventions will not necessarily eliminate distractions, they will help you to avoid overvaluing them or becoming overly dependent upon them. The topic of self-discipline almost always stirs our strongest emotions. Whether viewed in the negative, procrastination, or the positive, work ethic, we naturally respond to the term. For example, many of us cringe at the thought of procrastinating until the last morning to do our taxes. Similarly, we often admire the discipline we see in individuals who start running an hour a day or work on their novel for an hour a day. It is almost as if self-discipline is a concept that elicits moral judgment. Also, a bad decision often also seems to involve a lack of self-discipline. For example, why did you put off going to the doctor for a checkup, or why is it hard to learn a difficult new skill? Nonetheless, self-control will be concerned with blocking responses if they lead to goals that are desirable sometimes but not at the present moment, but implies controlling emotions if the undesirable response is the result of a mood incoherence. Then, a disconnected emotional processing from the reward network will be the core of impulsivity instead of the increase in sensitivity for immediate reward, because in this latter case, excessive emotions will lead to interference in the rational decision process and impulsivity would not occur. Again, consistency is paramount here because the MPFC, specifically the prelimbic cortex, not only has been shown to be crucial for adapting decision making in function of the modulating mood of the decision maker, something especially relevant for less adaptive individuals. Dimensional models of personality consistently include dimensions of impulsivity and emotional regulation. We included impulsivity and emotional regulation directly in this study because we were interested in their possible differential influence on self regulation at a feature level. Evidence on how impulsivity is related to self discipline is especially rich in the neuropsychology research program, as it seems to be a predisposing personality trait to virtually any psychopathological condition and to have its neurobiological root in the dark matter prefrontal cortex, PFC, of rats. The medial part of the prefrontal cortex, MPFC, analogous to the human dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. A wise man lamented, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." This suggests that a person overlooked and despised by people comes to the foremost in life. Everyone faces some sort of failure in life, minor or major. Increasing our resilience and the ability to keep up is vital for success. Rami Arjun says, "Let's vow our utmost and then succeed in failure again and again." The ability to fail without blaming stakeholders of failure hit back is an essential skill of achieving in life. Everyone fails, but the real victors are those who spring back like an elastic rubber from that setback. Successful individuals possess resilience in dealing with obstacles and are not left to dwell on failure, but are motivated by it to refine skills, acquire new strategies, or consult others to be fruitful and achieve in their respective objectives. Dweck emphasizes the importance of resilience in children during their early years. Known as perfect, and as human beings, we are more likely to fail than to succeed at anything we do in life. However, failure gives us another opportunity to shift our focus, re energize, and create ourselves and learn from our mistakes. What sets the very target inclined apart from the unsuccessful and most target oriented is the determination to get back up and overcome barriers and the strive to rise to the highest levels of success even after a major cataclysm. A study on how attitudes of 128 middle class professionals revealed that the major determinant of achievement was individual differences rather than environmental factors. People are in control of success and failure. Though failure builds character for most people, poor habits and attitudes keep people from trying harder and becoming bigger successes at whatever they desire in life. The power lies within us to seize the opportunity, learn from failure, and emerge victorious in the face of adversity. Chapter 5: Strategies for Maintaining Self-Discipline. In a new paper titled Enhancing Long-Term Self-Control, Strategies and Approaches, published in the journal Cognition, researchers Christian Carlson and Peter Gardenfors from Lund University delve into the intricate topic of self-control and explore 4 strategies that have the potential to promote and sustain long-term self-discipline. More specifically, they focus on 3 strategies that are derived from the ability to envision and contemplate future goals and the implications associated with them. Through their research, Carlson and Gardenfors introduce us to the concept of a hiking trail as a metaphorical representation of the path towards self-control. Imagine embarking on a hiking trail that presents moderate challenges yet remains within the realm of possibility. On this trail, an animal navigates towards its desired destinations by following a straight line until it encounters an obstacle that renders the path inaccessible. At this point, the animal must make a decision and choose an alternative route to bypass the obstacle. Interestingly, this decision-making process is often governed by the animal's present experiences and responding to its immediate surroundings, such as seeking nourishment or avoiding threats. These routines prove to be attentionally efficient as they save time, energy, and attention for the animal to regroup and gather more information in a relatively short distance. While numerous studies have shed light on how people across different cultures and regions maintain self-discipline, there is still much to be explored. The renowned French philosopher Henri Bergson postulated that motivation to take action can stem from only two sources: external imperatives and the perception of partial success and subsequent advancement. The former source of motivation has been extensively studied by researchers and involves a system of rewards and punishments, akin to carrots and sticks. However, it is worth noting that not everyone thrives under this system. Bergson's second source highlights the potential impact of deriving enjoyment from partial accomplishments and recognizing the possibilities that lie beyond them. For instance, suppose someone allows you to kiss their hand. This could imply the potential for further intimate gestures, like kissing their lips. This Bergsonian notion of the human drive emphasizes the significance of possessing the ability to contemplate multiple realities simultaneously. A seemingly simple action becomes more appealing when we are aware that desirable opportunities extend beyond it. This suggests that an imagination-based approach can be employed as a viable strategy for enhancing self-discipline. One effective method for bolstering self-discipline is through the utilization of support systems, commonly known as accountability systems. Our brains are wired to avoid outcomes that are perceived as painful, risky, or demanding excessive effort. Consequently, it is generally easier to refrain from succumbing to detrimental habits than it is to cultivate new positive habits. During the early stages of adopting a new practice, the cost of reverting to old patterns is relatively low. For instance, consider someone attempting to wake up early in the morning. If their discipline is not firmly established, giving in to the familiar pattern of sleeping in for a single instance may seem less burdensome than exerting the effort required to adhere to the new routine. In the absence of an accountability system, individuals can rationalize their way back into bed. Early on, self-discipline often feels uncomfortable and demands increased effort, making avoiding the decision the more attractive choice. On the other hand, facing potential disapproval from others or experiencing punishments for deviating from one's commitments holds lesser appeal. This unique circumstance allows us to leverage our inherent tendency to avoid undesirable outcomes to our advantage. When we embark on a journey to establish a new daily schedule or acquire a novel skill, our brains undergo various changes that render us highly susceptible to distractions during the initial stages. This susceptibility often leads us to revert back to old patterns, social circles, or habits because the neural connections associated with these familiar elements are already coded with a significant amount of myelin. Myelin acts as an insulating layer that forms around nerve fibers and enhances the quality of signal transmission. The more we practice a specific activity, the more myelin grows around the corresponding neural connections. Consequently, it becomes increasingly challenging to maintain newly acquired habits, schedules, or decision-making processes during the first few weeks or months. However, as time progresses and we persist in our endeavors, the growth of myelin eventually serves as a protective barrier for these new habits, skills, or decision-making processes, making them less prone to disruption. Resilience, a central concept in positive psychology, refers to the ability to maintain a relatively high level of positive functioning in the face of negative experiences. It plays a crucial role in leading a fulfilling life while adhering to a moral code. Various strategies have proven effective in fostering resilience, including seeking out challenging experiences, pursuing continuous learning, and immersing oneself in new environments. Another approach involves enhancing the individual's capacity to cope with initial distress. This, in turn, contributes to self-discipline, which can be seen as the embodiment of maintaining composure, discernment, and self-control during unfavorable circumstances. Self-discipline studies commonly focus on two primary components: overcoming prepotent responses and inhibiting or delaying immediate desires. These factors can vary across different tasks, groups, and individuals, highlighting their independence in the context of self-discipline. Mindfulness, a specific form of non-judgmental self-awareness or self-observation, has gained significant attention in recent years. It entails redirecting attention and consciously focusing on the present moment, purposefully and without judgment. It has been proposed that when cravings arise, cultivating mindfulness by paying attention to the various components of the craving, including bodily sensations, thoughts, and mental images, can disrupt the automatized urges linked to addiction related behavior. This disruption ultimately allows individuals to exert control over their subsequent actions. Psychiatrist Adam Gaznick has extensively examined the effects of mindfulness on the brain. Attention, cognitive control, self awareness, and emotion all play essential roles in the mindfulness process. Mindfulness training facilitates the ability to adapt and respond appropriately, rather than merely following ingrained habitual patterns of behavior. Gaznick suggests that mindfulness can potentially remodel the scaffolding within the prefrontal cortex, a region closely associated with emotional regulation, cognition, and intentional actions. This remodeling process may hold connections to the underlying mechanisms of self control. However, it remains unclear why mindfulness cannot be adequately described by conventional psychological principles. One potential avenue for understanding lies in the concept of self, which, in the context discussed here, is distinct from self awareness. Another factor that triggers the need for self discipline is the experience of loss. People tend to behave in accordance with the widely studied phenomenon of loss aversion, wherein they exhibit a strong inclination to avoid losses rather than seeking gains. Additionally, individuals tend to discount future rewards steeply if a clear commitment mechanism is absent. Surprisingly, previous models of time and consistent preferences have not adequately accounted for the rationalization of dietary behaviors. Heeding this gap in existing research becomes all the more pressing given the steady rise in obesity rates, subsequent healthcare costs, and the profound implications for aging populations. Long-term investments often pose challenges due to the temptation of immediate gratification. The reward must be substantial enough to dissuade individuals from pursuing alternative sources of satisfaction in the present moment. Furthermore, the longer the time horizon, the greater the deviation from the present, leading to the diminishing valuation of such deviations in the individual's decision-making process. The importance of self-discipline in executing our plans cannot be overstated. More often than not, we encounter incentives that may deter us from following through with our pursuits. This creates a state of conflict between the temptation to deviate and the strategic choices and allocations that a self-disciplined decision-maker has previously identified as the optimal course of action. Consequently, self-discipline embodies the trade-offs inherent in making the optimal choice. Psychologist George Ainsley has extensively explored this framework, which he has articulated with great detail in his influential work, Breakdown of Will. Numerous models based on Ainsley's framework have been proposed in various fields, including psychology, neuroscience, computer science, and economics, among others. In conclusion, enhancing long-term self-control requires a multifaceted approach that encompasses several strategies. These strategies involve envisioning and contemplating future goals, establishing support systems or accountability mechanisms, navigating the early stages of habit formation, fostering resilience, practicing mindfulness, and recognizing the significance of loss aversion in self-discipline. By adopting these strategies, individuals can strengthen their ability to maintain self-control and make optimal decisions, leading to long-term achievements and a more fulfilling life. Chapter 6. The Role of Self-Discipline in Success. So why not bulletproof self-discipline? Isn't it the most important foundation of success? Self-discipline requires energy. All functions of the body and brain run on glucose, which is the body's main energy source. Each time we exercise self-control, the fuel is drained from our gas tank, a process called ego depletion. Ego depletion is the experience of feeling tired and worn out after previously exerting willpower or self-discipline. Like a muscle, the human capacity for self-discipline appears to be finite, and when responsibilities call for more self-discipline than can be generated, or when multiple self-discipline tasks are attempted simultaneously, our ability is exhausted and the required tasks are executed impulsively. The ability of the human prefrontal cortex to direct thought, affect, and behavior largely depends on the availability of glucose and therefore relies on the body's mechanism for storing and utilizing energy. There are a great many factors that influence success. A few that come to mind include intelligence, creativity, ambition, hard work, perseverance, optimism, and social skills. The good news is that the development of self discipline and deliberate effort through suppressing cravings now to reach future goals seem to be within the reach of most people. We all have the potential to perform deliberate practice, suppress impulses, and grow our self discipline. Such consistency is not only achievable, it can be achieved by most individuals who have goals and values that are in line with productive work and learning. One of our students in the last session of the software leadership program says, "I knew what to do, only I fought against doing it. I went to Clint Eastwood's High Plains Drifter. What are you looking at? I am now feeling comfortable with my I know it all attitude, and I have realized how much energy I am conserving to do what I was supposed to do." As we go along our journey of finding the ways to apply what we have learned, self discipline in this context, there is also the aspect of how applicable they are in a business world. If you look at the examples above, employee participation, calibration talks, positive reinforcement, physical energy, and enthusiasm are very relevant to individuals who are into managing and leading teams or doing special assignments of cultural significance. Can you think of activities that would make you a more productive worker, a more effective manager, a trusted colleague, a better leader, or a more appreciative customer? Of course you can. We know what to do, we just resist. While most businesses do a great job focusing on recruiting the right talent, a person who has the potential to be successful, very few pay attention to developing self discipline, which is an essential ingredient for realizing that potential. Can you participate more in business meetings? Can you deliver tough talk to employees who are not meeting expectations or making decisions that do not fit into the culture of the organization? Can you give credit to an employee in front of his slasher colleagues? Can you exercise or meditate for 30 minutes every day so that you have plenty of energy and enthusiasm to support others? Can you make a choice to be happy and enthusiastic irrespective of what is going on around you? As for the most important challenge, raising your personal standards so high that in the act of jumping at them, even if you miss, you end up on a higher platform. Such a lofty jump becomes more and more attainable as a result of the process you followed to strengthen and rebuild your broken chain. What I'd like to stimulate today is a reflection. It comes as no surprise that discipline is a process, but we tend to semi-unconsciously perceive it as a static on/off feature. We have it or not. This view makes our falls even harder and our rebounding slower. It is extremely useful to think of discipline as a chain. If you drop a chain, it needs only one link to hold you. Once you recover the fallen object and lift it from the ground, you have taken the first step to strengthen the remaining weaker links. After you have strengthened your weakest link, you are ready to recover the following one. And as you proceed, the process of strengthening each link gets easier the higher you advance in your chain. In a rather long-lasting experiment, with unpredictable interruptions, we let a group of volunteers choose between a healthy and an unhealthy treat. When we disrupted their prefrontal cortex with a completely harmless method called transcranial magnetic stimulation, their preference for the healthier meal significantly decreased, and several months later, they even ate noticeably more sugar when we discreetly observed them at a buffet. Understanding the brain circuits of self-discipline could have far-reaching applications. In education, for example, children could be taught certain techniques to help them improve their self-discipline. However, the road towards understanding the brain is still long, and it could take a number of years before neuroscience actually yields pragmatic advice. Together with my team, I am working on some of these aspects. We recently discovered, for example, that even though the prefrontal cortex has no direct access to food and therefore is not directly involved in evaluating food quality, it can still help us improve our meal choices. It's really a motivation issue. Do we act on impulse, or do we do what we set out to do? When people have controlling histories where they learn that their behaviors don't benefit them, they start to disbelieve in their ability to improve their condition. They end up with negative thoughts and stereotypes about their behavior, and those beliefs become self fulfilling prophecies. They become a big part of their self concept. This is why it's important to inspire people to update their belief system. There's a system in our brain that allows us to be aware of our thoughts, and these thoughts help us build and update our beliefs. Many times during intervention therapy, just helping people be more aware of their own thoughts can be enough to change this circle of negativity into an honest self appraisal and an understanding of the system they have in the brain to improve it. Consider a person with high self discipline in a dining situation, presented with the dessert menu. This person is very capable of making the decision to opt out of dessert or to order a healthier dessert. He might think, it's not what I really want, so I'll decide to opt out of dessert. People who have a high degree of self discipline are able to make choices consistent with what they say they want. For instance, if you ask a very disciplined person if he would rather have a chocolate bar or a granola bar, he's able to think about the long term and say, I'd rather have the granola bar. This ability to postpone immediate pleasures in the pursuit of long term goals might seem counterintuitive, but it is what high self control is all about. High self control individuals make lots of choices that their low self control peers wouldn't make, and these are the things that help them achieve what they set out to achieve. Additionally, high self control individuals are more likely to maintain a healthier lifestyle, manage their finances responsibly, and establish solid relationships based on trust and respect. So, in essence, self discipline is indeed the most important foundation of success. Conclusion: even if self discipline has a biological basis, remembering that it can be increased by training is encouraging. Tools for training from personal trainers differ greatly. Some may be puzzling and disorienting during early life. However, the variety and diversity of the routines is underpinned by competent biological understanding and evidence. Many tools for building self-discipline in the chapter may appear to be strange and unworkable. However, often they were either practiced in ancient civilizations or validated by the modern scientific evidence. In both ancient history, walking to school, al fresco physical rehearsal, the prolonged sleep, or ruminative prayer are not new. The effects, which have been validated by scientific proof, can never be evaluated negatively solely because of the supply form. Our biological core derived from the really ancient past hasn't shifted a great deal. We can therefore easily conclude that successful strategies for self-discipline, as they have in the past, are maintained in the future. Self-discipline is an important capability in all aspects of our lives. Success often requires avoiding impulses or desires. It requires adhering to plans. It requires perseverance. The chapter has outlined how there is some chemistry behind training self-discipline. Self-discipline is a resource of the brain, and it can be built in the same way that a muscle in the body grows stronger with exercise. Training in self-discipline leads to improvements using the neurological functions used when exerting self-discipline. Self-discipline failures are most common when several different demands compete at once. It is in our best interest to arrange our lives to minimize the frequency of temptations and demands that can undermine our self-discipline. If you found this content enriching and valuable, we would be deeply grateful if you could express your appreciation through liking and subscribing. Your support is incredibly meaningful and enables us to continue creating content that resonates with you. For those who think this is a great gift for yourself or for your loved ones, you can find the link in the description.